All right, so this lesson is on titration calculations, and this is the last lesson for this unit. What we're going to do is just refresh our memory about titrations. All this is review from the previous lesson. We'll refresh our memory about these definitions of these things and what an indicator is in titration, and then I'll run you through a couple examples, or I guess one example here. Okay. So let's get started. And I probably should point out the objectives we're using today are use titration data to calculate molarity for an acid or base solution of unknown concentration. Yesterday it was these right here, or the previous lesson was these right here for the neutralization reaction lesson. And then we'll review these three things as well. Okay, so neutralization reaction, it's a reaction between an acid and a base. You always get a salt and water. Remember, you know that you have an acid when it starts with H, and you'll know you'll have a base when it ends in OH. And the H from the acid and the OH from the base give you the water, and then whatever's left is the salt. So the potassium there goes with the nitrate there, and there's your salt. Salt is just a general term for an ionic compound. So the titration is done to find the concentration, in this case molarity, of an acid or a base. So that'll be an unknown, and you do the experiment to find out what the molarity is. You react it until you get to the equivalence point. That's when all of the acid and the base have neutralized each other, and all you have in the container is the salt and water. That's the equivalence point. So they've completely reacted. Then you need to get an indicator. They're just substances like litmus or phenolphthalein or methyl blue or whatever. They have different colors at different pH values, and they have a little range of pH where they change color. So you want to find an indicator that will change color at this equivalence point where the acid and the base have become the salt and water. And we'll see another example of that at the end today. All right, so here's an example. We have 10 milliliters of sulfuric acid are in the Erlenmeyer flask. So there's our sulfuric acid, and I usually like to write underneath what's in the flask and what's in the burette. So that's because that's always the unknown that goes in the flask. So you've got that 10 milliliters there in the flask, and then it takes 13.4 milliliters of potassium hydroxide from the burette to reach the equivalence point. So they did the titration, it's done. It took 13.40 milliliters to reach the equivalence point, and there would have been an indicator that changed color to tell you the equivalence point had been reached. You know the molarity of the one in the burette. So there it is, 0.500 molar. So keep track of what's the flask and what's the burette. You always have to have a balanced reaction equation, and remember the charge, or we're getting the products here. Sulfate is a 2-, and that's what has crisscrossed down. It was a 2- here, and that's what crisscrossed down there. So remember, you're looking at sulfate. There it is. It's SO4 with a 2- charge. So that's how you know it crosses down. Potassium has a +1 charge. There it is. And so that crosses down, and you don't put parentheses, or you don't use parentheses or any numbers outside the sulfate because it's an invisible one. And then you have to balance it. You have 2 potassiums there, so you balance that, and that gave you 2 hydrogens here plus 2 more is 4. So you come over here and put a 2, and that'll give you 4 hydrogens. And then the sulfates, 1 sulfate, 1 sulfate, 2 oxygens, 2 oxygens. Okay, so we're ready to go now. Remember, we're trying to find the molarity of this. And what is molarity? Let's just refresh our memory. Molarity is moles of solute per liter of solution. This was from the solutions unit. And so we need to find how many moles of this sulfuric acid we have. We already have the solution amount. It's 10 milliliters, so we'll change that to liters at one point. But we need to get the molarity of that, we need to get the moles of that H2SO4. So what we will do is use stoichiometry to convert from the volume of the known solution, that's in the burette, that's this volume right here, to moles of the unknown solution in the flask here. So that's what will get us the numerator. That's what we're really getting in this first step here, number 2. And so you start with the 13.40 milliliters. And you should keep track of what you're dealing with. That's the KOH solution, potassium hydroxide. And you've got milliliters of potassium hydroxide down here to cancel. You always move this down. And like in the solutions unit, or when we were doing molarity calculations, you'll convert to liters of the solution. So we've got milliliters of the solution. We want liters of the KOH solution. And there are 1,000 milliliters per liter of solution. And then for every 1 liter of the potassium hydroxide solution, we can convert to moles of potassium hydroxide. How can we do that? Molarity, because that's what this says. It says 0.500 moles of KOH for every 1 liter of solution. That's what capital M means. So bring that 0.500 moles for every 1 liter. All right, well, we've got moles of potassium hydroxide. We're trying to get to moles of the solute in the unknown, which is the H2SO4. So that's where the stoichiometry comes in. We can use moles of potassium hydroxide and move that down to make it cancel. And yes, we can go to moles of H2SO4. That's the mole ratio. So you're back to your coefficients. So H2SO4 has an invisible 1 in front of it. KOH has a 2 in front of it. Now we do the math. Take 13.40 divided by 1,000 times 0.5 divided by 2, and I'm getting 3.35 times 10 to the negative 3, and that's moles of sulfuric acid, H2SO4. All right, so that's the numerator. Now we're going to work on getting the denominator, the liters of solution. Well, we know how many milliliters of that of that sulfuric acid we have, because this is the one we're after. This is our unknown. We know how many milliliters we have, so we're just going to convert the milliliters to liters. So bring the milliliters down to cancel, and put liters of the H2SO4 solution up top. There are 1,000 milliliters in a liter, just like there was up here. So you're dividing by 1,000. That means you move the decimal back 3. So I'm getting 0.01. And I've got 4 sig figs here, so I want 4. I've only got 1 right now, so I'm going to keep those zeros that were at the end. And that's liters of solution. And that's really liters of the sulfuric acid solution. That's the one we're trying to get the molarity of. So now finally, we can find the molarity, because the molarity we said was going to be moles of the H2SO4 for every 1 liter of the H2SO4 solution. So we're just plugging in. Here are the moles up here, 3.35 times 10 to the negative 5. And then here's our liters of solution, 0.01000 liters of H2SO4 solution. So when we divide, that'll tell us how many moles we have for 1 liter. This is how many moles we have for 0.01 liter. When you divide, you always get you'll get a denominator of 1, and that'll be per 1 liter. And I'm getting 0.335. I'm really just moving a decimal around, because that's a 1 down there. And what's the unit now? Well, moles per liter solution, we call that capital M for molarity. All right, so the final question on this one, and that's our answer. You know, the question was, what is the molarity? There it is. And another question you might run across is choosing an indicator. So how do you get the indicator here? You have to go back to your reactants and see if they're strong or weak acids and bases. So if you don't know, just look it up online. You know, just see, ask on a search engine, is H2SO4 a strong acid? And it is. So that's a strong acid, and potassium hydroxide is a strong base. You can look that up if you don't know. Usually the group 1 and group 2, the ones in here, when they're with the hydroxide, they tend to be strong bases. Just a rule of thumb. Anyway, so we've got a strong acid and a strong base. So if you can check out those notes from the neutralization reactions and titrations, we've got some graphs here. We've got a strong acid and a strong base, and that says when that happens you get a equivalence point that's going to be 7. So go back to here, and well, we should maybe, let's find the range that it's a very wide range when you have a strong acid and a strong base. You want that kind of vertical part of the curve. I'm trying to draw straight lines, but usually you're getting a anywhere in that range there. It looks like the pH, this is a 7, so there's a 10. I don't know, maybe somewhere between 4 through 10. If your indicator changes color anywhere in 4 through 10, then that will be an indicator that will probably work. So there's 4, there's 10, and it really seems like almost any of them would work. Bromothymol blue is a nice one, because we know that the pH will be 7, right at 7 for a strong acid and a strong base. So you've got one that is right there, that one would work, bromothymol blue. This one's going to work because it's changing between 5 and 8, litmus. This one, probably not a good choice. If you're in a pinch, maybe it would, because it would start turning around 4, but it's not the best one. And then phenolphthalein would work too, because it's here at 7, it's going to start turning at 8, and that's pretty close. So any of those 3 would work, as far as I'm concerned. I always like to go for one for phenolphthalein if you can, because you've got no color and then you have a color. That's easier to see than changing from red to blue, where at some point it's going to be sort of purple, and it's just a little confusing. Alright, so you should be set up to do the titrations, calculations practice. Make sure you're writing balanced reaction equations, and you should check them before you start doing any calculations, so that, because you need to have the coefficients right in order to, coefficients need to be right because they'll turn up in your problem like they are down there.